for something we had done before, and the error codes were in Spanish.
Were they really?
Like
Brilliant.
This
Yeah, that didn't work. Let's try
Why are we doing this like this?
excellent.
Enter the passcode and press
You went through some of the code that we got when we were originally switching over to the new rituals template. There's lots of that.
All right, well, while we're trying to connect through life size. And 3, 7, 8. And Deformation Transfer. That's not good. Transfer. I'm thinking too fast. For it's called 3D meshes. Let's try calling. Oops. Directly. They're the reef or the orca. Let's try the orca. Well, some people.
the passcode you entered is not valid.
So, hi, orca guy or reef guys. I was trying to connect.
Enter the passcode and press pound.
I'm gonna try this. Are they talking about me or you guys? Reef guys, can you hear me?
Joining the meeting.
Oh, now I can get to the cloud. How weird. So, darn. So, reef guys, don't dial direct. You guys know about joining through Life-Size Cloud, right? So, hang up.
That's what we did.
Oh.
Okay. That's what we did. I think you called us.
I called you because I couldn't get to the Life-Size Cloud, but now it let me get into the Life-Size Cloud. So I'm going to hang up and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Hang up. Hi.
Oh.
Everybody. All right, seems like it's working.
Enter the passcode and press pound. Joining the meeting.
Yes. All right. Happy dance. I'm online now. Yay. Okay, so David, I was talking to these guys. There's one big question that needs to be answered at the end of this paper. Why don't we use this?
By me, right?
Yeah, no, by you. Why don't we use this? Because this is kind of cool tech. So this is, welcome to Talk Time. This is a paper that Rashab found. It's a paper that was published in 2010, but on the website of their author, he actually lists this at 2008. So this is actually a fairly old paper. It's not cited by anybody. It's published in the Journal of Information Science and Engineering, which is kind of off to the side of the standard SIGGRAPH or Eurographics kind of thing. But this is a cool paper. This is a neat paper. It's a little hard to read, but once we get to it, we'll get to it. So, what are we talking about? So, like I said in the email, deformation transfer. Where'd my blue pen? There it is. Deformation transfer is the thing we use all the time, and because I don't know my audience, we're going to go over it one more time just to make sure that everybody is on board, and then we're going to go fast. So the paper that we're going to go fast over is this classic paper from Robert Sumner and Jovan Popvić in 2004. It's called Deformation Transfer for Triangle Meshes. And this is the original paper. There are some follow-on papers to this that make the math a little bit faster, that add some stuff to it, but this is the core idea of a lot of cool stuff. And I always refer to this as the horse and camel paper, because right on the front, it's got a horse and a camel. And the whole idea is, if we have a horse, and I'm not gonna, there's a horse. There, it's a horse with a little mane. Woo, yeah, it gets better, right? A little smile, it's a happy horse. It's a good horse. It's a comb. And then we have with longer legs and a smaller head, we have a happy camel. And the cool thing is we've got this is saved down in Olympic cache, and we have an animated mesh, right? Animated mesh. This is animated. Happy. We know where all the triangles go from one frame to the next. But the director comes to us and says, you know, I've changed the location of the movie. It's not set in the Wild West, it's set in Egypt, and I want to change all the animation you've done on the horse to camels. How do you go about doing that? Well, that's what this paper is saying. How do I take this horse and use how it moves to animate this guy that looks different, while still not screwing up the overall appearance of this guy? What we'd like to do is take the motion of this guy and transfer it onto that mesh. Notice the number of triangles here, number of tries, not equal to the number of tries here. And at this point, we're all talking about triangles. You can extend this upwards, but we're going to be doing triangles throughout this entire thing. So how do you do that? Well, that's what deformation transfer is. And the whole concept is to say, okay, what we're going to do is come up with a mapping of triangle to triangle here. And in fact, if this is a denser mesh, we may actually have this triangle mapped to a whole bunch of triangles, or vice versa. It can be one-to-one, it can be onto, it can be, you know, injective, bijective, all that kind of stuff. There's all sorts of mappings about how triangles go from one to another. Basically, the number of triangles don't have to work. We're also going to specify a couple of constraints. We need this to make sure that the matrix math actually works out well. And so you're going to specify that, you know, that point and that point on this mesh are exactly the same. And you know, the paper talks about, well, let's take all these feet and put constraints on them that say, you know, no matter what we do, these points correspond to that. Then there's a whole thing about in the paper, which we're totally going to skip, about taking the triangles and computing a mapping to sort of saying, okay, this triangle and these triangles correspond. And it's kind of like a shrink wrap deformation that respects these constraints that we put together. But basically, we're going to take that as read because we're going fast. We're going to say, okay, we've got an idea of how these triangles move. Now, how do you apply the motion of that triangle to this cluster of triangles? How do you make them move the same way? And the key here is the word deformation, right? What we're going to do is not try to bring up some point-to-point mapping, which is going to be tricky. But what we're going to do is encode how this triangle deforms, right? We're going to see not what it looks like, but how it changes. And then we're going to apply that same kind of change to this triangle, these triangles, so that the motion that this triangle is going through as it moves through time gets applied to this. Now there's some tricks there, because this thing is moving in its own particular way, and if we apply this same motion and in fact, they have this great picture of doing exactly that, taking the motion of this triangle and applying it to different triangles in a different mesh without respecting the meshiness of this thing. And when you do that, it actually breaks the mesh apart. It shatters the mesh because the vertices of one triangle might not move exactly the same as the vertice of a neighboring triangle, and so the mesh gets all shattered and stuff. And so the big trick of this paper is to say, hold on, let's get the motion of this, apply it to this in such a way that the mesh doesn't break apart, that the mesh's properties stay the same, and it kind of still looks like a camel. All right? And we're really quickly going to go over that just to get some of the basic math, because it's not that hard. So first of all, step one is we look at a triangle. And make sure I use the same indices. So they have vertice 1, vertice 2, and vertice 3. And these are x, y, z coordinates of a triangle in space. We're going to just look at a single triangle right now. And this is the animated triangle, because that's the thing we have the information on. Now, unfortunately, 3 vertices is not enough. What we really want to encode sort of how this triangle moves through space is to add an extra vertex. And we can do that. We can do that with a little bit of cross-product magic. We're going to actually use this and create a vertex that pops out of the plane of the triangle called vertex 4. And the math for that is actually pretty easy. Vertex 4 is equal to vertex 1 plus vertex 2 minus vertex 1. See, we started at vertex 1 plus, and I'm going to go down a line here, vertex 3 minus vertex 2 plus, sorry about that. And this whole kit and caboodle divided by the square root of the length of those 2 things that we did. And I'm gonna.
Is that a plus or a cross vector?
Oops, sorry. Thank you very much. Cross vector. And the thing that's getting divided is that. So this v1 is not getting divided. Like I said, I'm going a little bit too fast here. V3 minus v1. Thank you very much. So what this is doing is taking this vector and that vector. Again, we've got triangles. Doing a cross product, what does that do? Gives you a perpendicular vector to that. And then that's just another vector. So we want to get a world space coordinate. So we add it to v1. That puts that v0 or v4 there. And then there's this scaling thing. We scale the cross product by the reciprocal of the square root of its length, since this causes the perpendicular direction to scale proportional to the length of the triangle edges. What? I refer you to the paper and you have to think a little bit about why they do this. But this is an important step to make sure that this deformation behaves itself. And so this division, you can't just say, I'm going to take this vector and that vector cross product and add it to the corner here. You do need to scale it to make sure that it behaves itself in terms of a deformation. We're not going to go over that because it doesn't really impact us. All right, so this is cool. So think about this. Now, with this little magic thingy that we've done, we've got a new 4 vertice triangle, right? It's still a triangle, but it's got this extra sort of floaty triangle. And by the way, some of the follow-on papers have ways of sort of getting rid of that extra vertex. So it makes it a little bit easier. All right, so now, an affine transformation is defined by a 3×3 matrix Q and a displacement vector. So think about what's going to happen to this triangle as it moves. It gets deformed, right? Plus equals V. All right, so think about any vertex in this triangle, right? We're going to deform the triangle, and we're going to apply that deformation to each one of the vertices. And this matrix Q is a 3×3 element matrix. This is just a 3-element vector, and this thing moves it in space. And this thing is the thing that deforms the triangle. It bends the triangle. It squishes it. You can see that as a rotation where it rotates the entire triangle. or it could actually skew the triangle or scale it. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do with a 3-element vector. And so this thing is responsible for the deformation. This is the thing that's responsible for just moving it through space as it travels through space. All right. So what we want to do, this is cool. This is the thing we want. That's the deformation transfer. How do you compute that? Well, we take the original location of the course and go to frame, whatever frame we're on. So frame 10. Frame 10, we have a triangle that has been squished. Over here at frame 0, we have the rest position of our triangle, right? So maybe we could use these two things to create a way of computing Q. All right? So think about this. If we write this out, I'm going to get rid of my little boxes here. I love this. They did this very rapidly in the paper, but it's kind of cute. V0, V0, Q, V1 plus V equals V1 tilde, Q, V2 plus V equals V2 tilde. Remember, the same deformation gets applied to every vertex, and it's moving in space. Okay. So, what if, oh my gosh, why didn't you guys yell at me? I used the wrong indices. I'm so used to starting it. Mark Alexa is a mathematician first and a computer scientist second, so I want to make sure I get this right. I'm sure you got that. Started at the wrong thing. Oh, okay. If we subtract the first equation from all the other equations, what happens? If I subtract this from this equation, I just do these in subtraction, the d's cancel out, right? And you get Q times V1 minus Q times V2 equals V1 minus V2. And you can take that Q out, and the first thing that you get is Q times V2 minus V1 equals V2 minus V1. All right?